Leora walked through the bustling streets of Zithara City, her eyes scanning the vibrant marketplace. The tall, elegant towers of the Vorin capital glimmered under the pale light of the twin suns. Vendors shouted their wares in melodic tones, and the air carried the scent of exotic spices and metals. Leora's long, silver hair caught the light as she moved, but she paid it little attention. Today, she had far more important matters on her mind than her appearance. For years, Leora had tried to follow the traditional path expected of her. She was brilliant, one of the most talented engineers in her district, yet the males of her society had always looked past her. They saw her intelligence as threatening rather than admirable. They admired those who were graceful, obedient, or willing to follow ancient customs without question. Leora had none of those traits in abundance. She had ideas, bold ideas, dangerous ideas, and for that she was invisible to the very people she was supposed to impress. She passed a fountain where young Vorin couples were performing the ceremonial dance of unions. Their movements were precise, calculated, each step filled with tradition and expectation. The males led and the females followed, smiles painted on their faces as they moved in time. Leora paused, watching. She had tried this dance before, every attempt met with polite applause but no real interest. No proposal, no recognition of her worth. Leora sighed and continued toward the Great Hall of Innovation, a massive structure where inventors and engineers gathered to showcase their creations. Inside, she hoped to find some distraction from her growing frustration. She entered the hall and immediately felt the hum of energy from hundreds of devices, both simple and complex. Machines whirred, lights blinked, and holographic displays floated in the air, projecting intricate blueprints. Leora approached a table where she had placed her latest invention, a compact energy stabilizer that could regulate power flow for entire city blocks. It was small, elegant, and deadly efficient. She adjusted the controls, checking each connection. The stabilizer had potential, she knew, but she also knew that innovation alone would not earn her a suitor. The males of Zithara valued charm, strength, and obedience far more than intellect. "Leora," a voice called. She turned to see her friend and fellow engineer, Celira, approaching. Celira was warm and vibrant with a smile that seemed to light up the hall. "Another day, another demonstration of brilliance," she said with a playful tone. "I suppose," Leora replied, trying to hide the bitterness in her voice. "But brilliance seems to frighten them more than it impresses them." She had grown tired of trying to impress the males who had rejected her. Every attempt had ended the same way: polite smiles, empty compliments, and no proposal. She wanted to be recognized not for following rules, but for her mind, her ideas, her vision. As she worked, a group of Vorin males entered the hall, their attention scanning the room with a mix of curiosity and judgment. Leora felt their eyes on her, measuring, weighing, dismissing. She ignored them, focusing on the stabilizer. One of the males, a tall figure with striking blue eyes, approached her table. "Impressive device," he said, his tone polite but distant. "But do you not think such things are unnecessary? We have always relied on simpler methods." "Innovation often seems unnecessary until it becomes essential," she replied evenly. "I have designed this to prevent energy failures that could affect thousands. It is not unnecessary, it is preparation. But tradition guides us more safely than speculation." He walked away, leaving Leora with a quiet frustration she had learned to carry. Hours passed as Leora continued her work, testing her device, adjusting circuits, and refining calculations. She hardly noticed the passing time until the announcement came over the hall's intercom. A human delegation had arrived on Zithara. Humans were rare visitors, and their presence always caused a stir. Unlike the Vorin, humans did not follow strict rules or elaborate customs. They were unpredictable, adaptable, and remarkably bold. Many Vorin found them curious but also unsettling. Leora felt a flicker of interest. She had read about humans in old trade records, heard stories of their ingenuity, and studied their inventions. They were strange, yes, but they often succeeded where Vorin methods failed. Perhaps they could understand her ideas better than her own people. The hall doors opened, and a small delegation of humans entered, their movements purposeful and confident. One of them, a tall man with dark hair and piercing green eyes, paused near her table. He observed the stabilizer with genuine curiosity, leaning in to examine the intricate circuits. "Fascinating," he said in fluent Vorin language, though his accent was clear. "I've never seen anything like this. What does it do?" "It prevents overloads and ensures efficiency in city-wide systems." "I'm Marcus," the human said, extending a hand. I'm here to study Vorin technology and culture. It seems I've found the perfect place to start. Truly seen, not for her beauty or her adherence to tradition, but for her mind. As the day progressed, Marcus followed Leora through the exhibition, asking questions, offering suggestions, and sometimes challenging her designs. Leora found herself enjoying the interaction more than she had enjoyed any Vorin social gathering. His perspective was different, practical, fearless, and unafraid to question norms. By the time the exhibition ended, a small crowd had gathered to watch the human and Vorin woman discuss her invention. Whispers spread among the Vorin observers. Some expressed admiration, others disapproval. Leora noticed a few males glancing at her with surprise, perhaps realizing that intelligence and skill could draw attention even without conforming to traditional expectations. Later, as the hall emptied, Marcus stayed behind. He looked at Leora with an expression she could not quite read. "You have a remarkable mind," he said quietly. "It's rare to find someone so skilled and so willing to challenge convention. Most would be content to follow tradition. I think you would understand that instinctively." She had spent her life navigating a society that did not appreciate her brilliance, wondering if she would ever be recognized for who she truly was. And now, a human, a being from a world she barely understood, had seen her, acknowledged her, and treated her as an equal. As they left the hall together, the streets of Zithra seemed brighter, the twin suns casting longer shadows across the stone-paved roads. Leora walked beside Marcus, her mind buzzing with ideas, possibilities, and a strange, thrilling curiosity. She had no idea what the future held, but for the first time she felt that it might be filled with opportunity. The next days passed in a blur. Leora showed Marcus her workshop, explained her projects, and even allowed him to test a few of her devices. Each interaction deepened her respect for his intelligence and adaptability. Unlike the Vorin males, Marcus did not seek to dominate or impress. He sought to understand, to learn, and to share insight. Word of their collaboration spread quickly. Some Vorin elders were scandalized. A human working so closely with a Vorin engineer, especially a female who had been ignored by their own males, was considered improper. Yet many younger Vorin watched with fascination. They saw something new, something exciting, something that challenged their long-held beliefs. One evening, as Leora returned home, she noticed a small group of young Vorin women watching her from the shadows. Their eyes were wide with curiosity and admiration. One of them stepped forward timidly. "Leora, you are different. You do not follow the rules blindly. How do you do it?" "It is not always easy, and not everyone will approve. But I believe that being true to yourself is worth the risk." The twin suns were setting, painting the sky in hues of gold and violet. She felt a sense of calm, a rare peace that had eluded her for so long. And somewhere in that calm, she felt a stirring of excitement, a sense that her life was about to change in ways she could not yet imagine. Marcus's voice interrupted her thoughts. "I'll meet you at the workshop tomorrow," he said, his tone casual but firm. "We have much to explore, and I think you'll find my approach unconventional." For the first time in her life, she felt that she was not defined by rejection, tradition, or the limitations others imposed upon her. She was defined by her ideas, her courage, and her willingness to embrace the unknown. And somewhere deep inside, Leora knew that this human, Marcus, was the beginning of something extraordinary. Something that could challenge the very foundation of Zithra's society. Something that could change her life forever. She closed her eyes, letting the warmth of possibility wash over her. Tomorrow was another day, another chance to innovate, to explore, and perhaps to finally be seen for who she truly was. The next morning, Leora woke to the soft hum of her workshop. Sunlight from Zithra's twin suns streamed through the wide windows, casting long shadows across her inventions. Today, she felt a mixture of anticipation and nervousness. Marcus was waiting to continue their work, and she was eager to see what new ideas he might bring. Unlike the Vorin males who had ignored or dismissed her, he had a spark of curiosity that excited her. She prepared her latest project, a small drone designed to navigate the complex city infrastructure, repairing energy conduits automatically. It was her most ambitious design yet, combining precision engineering with adaptive AI, a combination the Vorin rarely explored. Leora hoped Marcus would appreciate its potential. When she arrived at the workshop, Marcus was already there, examining a Vorin energy panel with keen interest. He looked up and smiled when he saw her. "You're on time. Good," he said. I've been thinking about your drone idea. I have a few suggestions that might make it more flexible in unpredictable conditions. Marcus's approach was different from anything she had experienced. He didn't assume he knew better. He wanted to explore together. "Show me," she said, guiding him to the workbench. For the next several hours, they worked side by side, discussing mechanics, testing circuits, and adjusting programming. Marcus had an unusual way of thinking. He approached problems like puzzles, looking for patterns and possibilities rather than following standard procedures. Leora found herself challenged, inspired, and above all, respected. She could see that he genuinely valued her insight. As they paused for a short break, Marcus looked around the workshop. "You've built all of this by yourself?" he asked, eyes wide with admiration. Leora nodded. "Most of it. There are a few prototypes I collaborated on with other engineers, but these designs are mine. I have to admit, I've never met a Vorin who took such initiative, especially in a world where tradition seems to matter more than innovation. That's why it's so hard to gain recognition." Praise from a Vorin male often came with judgment or condescension. Praise from a human, someone from a different world, felt genuine, free from the weight of expectation. For the first time, Leora felt a sense of possibility, not just for her inventions, but for her place in the world. Over the following days, their collaboration deepened. Marcus observed Leora as she worked, asking questions that pushed her to explain her thought process in ways she had never done before. He challenged assumptions, encouraged experimentation, and celebrated successes, no matter how small. One afternoon, while they tested the drone's navigation system in the streets of Zithera, a small crowd gathered. Humans were rare enough that their presence always attracted attention, and a human working closely with a Vorin woman, particularly one who had been ignored by Vorin males, was almost unheard of. Some of the onlookers whispered among themselves. "She's collaborating with a human? How improper," one elder muttered. "Perhaps she is daring to think differently," a younger Vorin replied. "That is new and intriguing." It navigated obstacles, repaired minor damage along the energy conduits, and returned to its docking station without error. The crowd erupted in applause, a mix of admiration and surprise. For once, Leora felt recognition that was not tainted by condescension or rejection. She looked at Marcus, who grinned and gave her a thumbs up. "You see," he said, "people respond to results, not tradition." Innovation speaks for itself. Leora found herself explaining her society's traditions, its rigid expectations, and the reasons behind the elaborate courtship rituals. Marcus listened intently, often asking questions that revealed the limitations and flaws in those traditions. One evening, while watching the twin suns set over the city, Marcus spoke quietly. "It seems unfair," he said. "Your society undervalues someone like you, yet you have so much to offer. You have talent, courage, and intelligence. Those are qualities worth recognizing. I think you've already changed how some people see you just by being yourself." As their partnership grew, Leora noticed subtle changes among the Vorin observers. Younger engineers began to approach her for advice, asking questions about her inventions. Some even attempted small experiments of their own, inspired by her methods. It was a small victory, but a meaningful one. Yet not all reactions were positive. Several Vorin males whispered disapproval behind her back. They resented the attention she received, particularly from a human. They could not understand why a female, previously ignored, now drew admiration. Leora tried to ignore them, focusing instead on the excitement and inspiration she felt from her work. One afternoon, while testing a new energy panel design, a Vorin male approached her with an expression that blended curiosity and skepticism. "Your collaboration with a human," he said cautiously, "is unusual. Are you certain it is wise to rely on someone from another world?" "But tradition. And sometimes, change begins with one person brave enough to take that first step." That evening, as Leora and Marcus reviewed the day's progress, Marcus leaned back in his chair and smiled. "You've inspired more people than you realize," he said. "Some may not admit it yet, but change is starting, and you are the spark." It was about inspiring others to see the value of courage, intelligence, and action. And that was far more powerful than any proposal or compliment could ever be. The following days brought new challenges. Leora was invited to present her inventions at a public forum, a rare opportunity for a female engineer. The audience included high-ranking Vorin officials, curious citizens, and a few skeptical males who had long ignored her. Leora felt the familiar tension of expectation, But this time, she had Marcus by her side. He offered quiet support, giving her confidence to speak boldly and clearly. She demonstrated her energy stabilizers, drones, and adaptive panels, explaining not only how they worked but why they mattered for the future of Zithra. The response was overwhelming. Citizens clapped, young engineers asked for advice, and even some older males nodded in approval. Leora felt a rush of accomplishment, not just for her inventions, but for the recognition of her mind and effort. After the forum, Marcus turned to her. "You see, your work speaks louder than any tradition ever could. People listen when results matter. And you are not most Vorin. Perhaps that is why we understand each other." And through it all, she had felt something she had never felt before, true recognition and respect. For the first time, Leora allowed herself to hope. Perhaps her life was not destined to be defined by rejection or tradition. Perhaps there was room for innovation, courage, and even companionship that respected her intelligence and individuality. Somewhere in the quiet of her workshop, Marcus's words echoed in her mind. Sometimes, change begins with one person brave enough to take that first step. Leora stood on the balcony of her apartment, watching the city awaken. Vendors arranged their stalls, engineers hurried to their workshops, and children ran through the streets laughing. Despite the beauty of the day, Leora felt a familiar tension. The Festival of Matches was approaching, a rigid Vorin tradition in which males selected brides through a series of challenges. For Leora, it had always been a source of disappointment. No matter her skill, her intelligence, or her contributions to society, the males had ignored her. This year, she had no intention of letting the festival define her, yet part of her could not ignore the pressure. Her parents whispered concerns. Other females speculated quietly. Even some of her peers watched with curiosity. But Leora had learned to carry the weight of expectation lightly. She had something more important, her work, her ideas, and increasingly Marcus. Marcus arrived at her apartment mid-morning, carrying a small device of his own invention. He had a wide grin, his green eyes bright with excitement. "Good morning, Leora. Ready to test something new." "What have you brought this time?" Marcus suggested modifications, and Leora implemented them, amazed at how well their ideas complemented each other. By late afternoon, the sensor was functional, predicting energy fluctuations accurately and allowing her stabilizers to respond instantly. "This is remarkable," Marcus said, watching the readouts. "You've designed a system that not only fixes problems but prevents them." Most Vorin engineers would never think beyond immediate repair. As the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in brilliant orange, Leora's thoughts returned to the Festival of Matches. She had avoided it in recent years, focusing on her work, but this year, the pressure was unavoidable. Some of the males who had ignored her were now starting to take notice of her abilities, and the festival would be their chance to see her in a public setting. Marcus noticed her distant expression. "Thinking about the festival?" he asked gently. Leora nodded. "I've always found it frustrating. No matter what I accomplish, they judge me by tradition rather than skill. I know some males are starting to notice my work, but I doubt that will change anything. The rules are rigid." "Rules are only as strong as the people who follow them. Maybe it's time someone questioned them." But a small, thrilling spark of possibility ignited within her. Perhaps this year would be different. Perhaps this year she would not be ignored. The next day, the streets of Zithra were alive with activity. Banners fluttered in the twin suns, and citizens gathered in anticipation of the Festival of Matches. The challenges were elaborate and public, displays of strength, intelligence, artistry, and composure. Leora had always excelled in intelligence, yet in the past, that had been insufficient to attract a suitor. As she arrived at the festival grounds, whispers followed her. Some eyes were filled with admiration, others suspicion. A few males exchanged glances, clearly unsettled by her presence. Leora felt a familiar twinge of frustration, but she held her head high. She would not let their judgment define her. Marcus stayed at her side, a quiet but steady presence. He observed the festival with fascination, noting the elaborate customs, the rigid hierarchy, and the subtle power plays between participants. "This is intense," he said quietly. "The rules are strict, and yet some of the males seem uncertain when it comes to you. Then let's show them that being unsafe can be powerful, respected, and even admired." Leora approached the arena confidently. Her first task was to assemble a series of energy circuits faster and more efficiently than the males before her. Marcus watched as she moved with precision, her hands steady, her mind sharp. Within minutes, she completed the task flawlessly, drawing murmurs from the crowd. The second task involved improvising a solution to a simulated citywide energy failure. Leora quickly analyzed the problem, adjusted her stabilizers, and implemented a system that restored power efficiently. The Vorin observers whispered in astonishment. She had done what no male had done before, solved the challenge with elegance, creativity, and foresight. Yet when the time came for the males to select a bride, none stepped forward. Leora's heart sank, but she did not show it. The festival rules demanded that males approach women they wished to court. She had performed with brilliance, yet they remained silent. She understood their hesitation. Her skill challenged their perception of power and tradition. Marcus, observing quietly, clenched his fists in frustration. He could see the injustice clearly. Leora had demonstrated unmatched intelligence and skill, yet the rigid traditions of Zithra prevented recognition. He knew that if anyone had the courage to step forward, it would need to be him, even if it broke every convention the Vorin held dear. As the festival drew to a close, Leora stood silently on the platform, the weight of expectation heavy on her shoulders. She could feel the eyes of the crowd upon her, some filled with curiosity, others with judgment. She had expected rejection, but it still stung. Marcus stepped forward, breaking the silent tension. "Leora," he said, his voice carrying across the platform, "I have watched you work, innovate, and lead. I have seen your courage, intelligence, and spirit. You deserve recognition not because of tradition, but because of who you are. On my world, humans do not follow rigid rules for union. We believe in partnership, respect, and mutual admiration. Leora, I wish to propose to you not because tradition commands it, but because I see your worth and value your mind, heart, and courage." She had never expected this. A human had dared to break the unspoken rules of her society, proposing openly, boldly, and sincerely. Leora looked at Marcus, her mind racing. This was not a fleeting gesture, it was a statement, a recognition of her worth, her intelligence, and her spirit. For the first time, someone outside her culture had acknowledged her for who she truly was. Her lips curved into a small, amazed smile. "Marcus," she said softly, you are braver than anyone I have ever known, and perhaps I would be honored to accept your proposal." Vorin males who had ignored her now looked away, embarrassed or resentful. Leora felt a rush of emotion she had never experienced before, recognition, respect, and a profound sense of freedom. She was no longer defined by rigid traditions or the judgments of those who could not see her worth. She was seen, truly seen, and chosen by someone who valued her mind and spirit above all else. Marcus stepped closer, his hand reaching hers. "Then we will face whatever comes together," he said, his tone steady and sincere. "Not by tradition, but by choice, by respect, and by understanding." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the festival grounds, Leora realized that her life had changed forever. The future was uncertain, filled with challenges, criticism, and cultural obstacles. Yet, for the first time, she felt a sense of empowerment. She had taken a step beyond tradition, beyond expectation, and into a world where her mind, courage, and heart could be recognized. Marcus squeezed her hand gently. "Are you ready for what comes next?" he asked. Leora took a deep breath, her eyes reflecting determination and hope. "Yes," she said. "I am ready." As night fell over Zithra, the city shimmered under the twin moons. Leora felt a quiet exhilaration. She had faced rejection, defied tradition, and chosen a path that was hers alone. And in that choice, she had discovered something more valuable than approval from her peers. She had discovered her own strength, her own worth, and the beginning of a partnership built on equality, courage, and mutual respect. Tomorrow, she knew, would bring challenges. Questions from elders, whispers from skeptics, and perhaps even opposition from those who could not accept change. But Leora was no longer afraid. She had Marcus, she had her mind, and she had the courage to step beyond expectation. Together, they were ready to face whatever the future held. For the first time, she felt truly free. The morning after the festival, Leora awoke with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. The events of the previous day replayed in her mind. The intelligence challenges, the silent judgment of the Vorin males, and Marcus's bold proposal. She had accepted, yes, but acceptance now carried weight. Their union was not just a personal matter. It was a statement, a challenge to the rigid traditions of Zithra. Marcus arrived at her workshop as promised, carrying a small satchel of tools. He smiled warmly, his presence a calming contrast to the uncertainty she felt. "Good morning, Leora," he said. Are you ready for today's project? We must be prepared. Citizens stopped to watch, some curious, some skeptical. A few whispered words of admiration for Leora, while others muttered disapproval. Yet she felt no fear. Marcus's confidence and her own skills gave her courage. As they set up the devices, a group of Vorin officials approached. Their expressions were stern, their posture formal. Leora, one elder began, your actions yesterday have caused concern among the council. We must remind you that the Festival of Matches has rules that are not easily broken. Your acceptance of a human proposal is unprecedented. Marcus values me for who I am, not for tradition. Is that truly a problem? I am aware of the consequences, yet change is often necessary for growth. If tradition prevents recognition of talent, courage, or character, then perhaps it is the tradition that must adapt, not the individuals. But we will not hide from truth or innovation. Leora and Marcus positioned their devices along the city's primary conduits. The sensors detected minor fluctuations, and the stabilizers responded instantly, preventing potential failures. Citizens gasped in awe as entire districts maintained steady power without interruption. It works flawlessly, Marcus said, glancing at Leora with pride. Your design, combined with the sensors, creates a system that even the council cannot deny. I seek only acknowledgement of what is effective and valuable. The results speak for themselves. For the first time, she felt that her influence might extend beyond her own projects, encouraging innovation and bold thinking among her peers. Yet, not all reactions were positive. A group of Vorin males who had once ignored her began to murmur disapproval. They could not understand why someone they had dismissed now attracted attention, admiration, and respect. Their pride and adherence to tradition clashed with the reality of her accomplishments and Marcus's support. Despite the tension, Leora found encouragement in the young engineers and curious citizens. Their enthusiasm reminded her why she had chosen to pursue innovation rather than conformity. Marcus's presence strengthened her resolve, reminding her that support and understanding could bridge worlds, cultures, and expectations. Over the following days, Leora and Marcus continued to test, refine, and expand their systems. They explored new applications for energy stabilization, drones, and adaptive AI. Their collaboration drew attention from distant districts, and some Vorin officials began to reconsider their earlier judgment. The combination of human ingenuity and Vorin precision produced results that could not be ignored. One afternoon, as Leora fine-tuned a drone capable of repairing conduits in hard-to-reach areas, Marcus spoke thoughtfully. You've done something remarkable, Leora. Not just with your inventions, but with how you've challenged perception. People are starting to see value in skill, courage, and innovation over rigid tradition. Not everyone is ready to accept change, especially when it threatens established norms. She had always dreamed of being recognized for her mind and courage, but she had never imagined that her efforts could inspire others. Marcus's words reminded her that innovation was not just about machines and systems, but about challenging limitations and encouraging growth. As the sun set over Zithra, painting the city in golden and violet hues, Leora reflected on the past week. She had faced judgment, scrutiny, and the weight of societal expectation. She had collaborated with a human, challenged tradition and begun to influence change. And yet, she felt a growing sense of freedom. For the first time, she was recognized not for conformity or appearance, but for her mind, her courage, and her willingness to embrace the unknown. The following morning brought a new challenge. A delegation of Vorin elders requested a formal demonstration of the systems Leora and Marcus had developed. The demonstration was to be conducted before the council and prominent citizens, with scrutiny sharper than ever. Failure was not an option. Leora prepared meticulously. She double-checked each stabilizer, ensured each sensor was calibrated, and tested every drone for functionality. Marcus assisted, offering suggestions and troubleshooting minor issues. Their combined expertise created a seamless operation, a testament to collaboration across worlds and disciplines. When the demonstration began, the council observed with critical eyes. Leora activated the systems, and the city's energy grids responded instantly. Minor fluctuations were corrected before they could cause disruptions. Drones repaired conduits efficiently, and sensors provided real-time feedback. The demonstration proceeded flawlessly, leaving the council in silent astonishment. This is unprecedented, one elder finally spoke. The results are undeniable. Your systems outperform traditional methods by significant margins. It needs courage, intelligence, and respect for those who contribute. Young engineers and curious observers whispered admiration, inspired by what they had witnessed. Even some of the more skeptical Vorin males began to nod in acknowledgement, recognizing the value of her achievements despite their discomfort with change. That evening, Marcus and Leora walked through the city streets, their steps light despite the weight of attention they now carried. "You've done it," Marcus said softly. "You've not only demonstrated brilliance but begun to shift perception. People are starting to see that intelligence, courage, and respect matter more than rigid tradition. But at least now, there is a beginning. But yes, your presence has made a difference, in ways I could not have imagined." And through it all, she had discovered something invaluable: the recognition of her worth, the respect of a partner, and the possibility of inspiring others to see beyond rigid expectations. She looked at Marcus, his expression calm but determined, and realized that together they could achieve more than she had ever dreamed. Their union was more than personal. It was a symbol of possibility, a bridge between worlds, and a testament to the power of courage, intelligence, and respect. For the first time, Leora felt truly confident in her place in the world. The future was uncertain, filled with challenges, curiosity, and perhaps opposition. Yet with Marcus by her side, she knew they could face whatever came next. Together, they had begun a transformation, not just for themselves, but for the society around them. And in that transformation, Leora found freedom, strength, and a sense of purpose she had never known before. The sun rose over Zithra, casting pale gold light across the city. Leora stood at the balcony of her apartment, overlooking streets now alive with renewed energy. The past weeks had been transformative. Her inventions were in use across multiple districts. Her collaboration with Marcus had drawn attention, and the whispers of admiration and curiosity now outnumbered those of judgment and doubt. Yet, she knew the day ahead would test them more than any challenge before. The council had requested a formal ceremony to recognize her achievements and the union between her and Marcus. It was a delicate balance, acknowledging her work and their partnership without completely overturning centuries of tradition. Leora had spent long hours preparing, consulting Marcus, and refining her presentation. Despite her nerves, she felt a deep sense of pride. They had come far, and today would be another step forward. Marcus arrived at her workshop early, carrying a small notebook filled with ideas for the ceremony. "Good morning," he said, smiling. "Are you ready to face them? Some may accept change, others may resist it openly." Elders, officials, and curious citizens filled the seats closest to the stage. Young engineers and observers lined the edges, eager to see the demonstration. Leora felt a mixture of excitement and determination as she stepped forward with Marcus at her side. She began by presenting the systems she and Marcus had developed: energy stabilizers, adaptive drones, and predictive sensors. Each demonstration was flawless, showing how innovation and collaboration could solve problems that traditional methods could not. The crowd reacted with awe, some whispering, some applauding, and others exchanging glances that betrayed surprise and admiration. An elder who had once questioned her loudly before stepped forward. "Leora," he began, voice firm but less severe than before, "your results are remarkable. Your methods are unconventional, yet effective. I see that your talents and innovations have improved the city and its infrastructure. It is guided by problem-solving, creativity, and a willingness to explore new possibilities. These qualities should be recognized, not dismissed. By combining different perspectives, we have achieved solutions that neither of us could have accomplished alone." With the demonstrations complete, the moment arrived to address their union. Leora took a deep breath, aware of the weight of what she was about to say. "I have accepted Marcus's proposal not because tradition commands it, but because he values me for who I am. He respects my mind, my ideas, and my courage. This partnership represents a new way forward, one that embraces respect, collaboration, and recognition of true talent. We hope that others will learn from this example, that they will see the strength in collaboration and courage." She had faced judgment, scrutiny, and resistance before, but she was ready for whatever came next. An elder spoke again, this time more carefully. "Your achievements and your partnership challenge our customs, yet they are undeniable. It is clear that you have demonstrated value not through adherence to tradition, but through skill, courage, and vision. We cannot ignore the results. Her work had been recognized, and more importantly, it had inspired others to consider a different perspective. Tradition, once rigid, now appeared flexible when faced with evidence of ability and respect. Marcus squeezed her hand gently. "This is just the beginning," he whispered. "Your courage has opened doors. Others will follow your example." Change spreads one step at a time. As the ceremony concluded, the elders formally acknowledged her work and her partnership with Marcus. It was a compromise, a delicate balance between tradition and progress. Yet for Leora and Marcus, it represented victory not just for themselves, but for the possibility of a new way forward for Zithera. After the formalities, citizens approached Leora and Marcus with questions, curiosity, and admiration. Young engineers asked for guidance, aspiring inventors sought advice, and even some previously skeptical adults nodded in acknowledgement. The atmosphere was charged with excitement, a mixture of wonder and inspiration. Leora and Marcus moved through the crowd, answering questions and demonstrating their devices. Everywhere they went, they left a trail of inspiration. Leora realized that recognition and respect were not static. They could grow, influence others, and spark change across an entire society. As the day faded into evening, Leora and Marcus returned to their workshop. The city glimmered under the twin moons, streets alive with renewed energy and curiosity. Leora felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Their partnership had not only advanced technology but had begun to shift cultural perception. She understood that change was gradual, yet it had begun in earnest. Marcus set down his satchel and looked at her with a quiet smile. "You've done something remarkable, Leora, not just with your inventions, but with how you've inspired others to rethink tradition and value talent. This is a turning point. You have shown me that courage, respect, and innovation can transcend worlds, and that partnership is stronger when built on understanding rather than rules. The future is not limited by tradition. It is shaped by those willing to act with courage and intelligence." Their collaboration became a symbol of possibility, showing that talent and courage could thrive even within a society once bound by rigid tradition. Some Vorin males still struggled with the changes, their pride challenged and their assumptions questioned. Yet even among them, a subtle shift began. They observed the admiration Leora inspired, the efficiency of her innovations, and the respect Marcus showed her. Slowly, some began to reconsider their own perspectives, realizing that recognition and respect need not be dictated by tradition alone. Leora, for her part, continued to innovate, driven by curiosity, creativity, and the knowledge that her work had meaning beyond personal achievement. Marcus remained a steadfast partner, offering insight, encouragement, and a perspective that complemented her own. Together, they became a force of progress, blending human ingenuity with Vorin precision. One evening, as they stood on the balcony of their shared workshop, looking out over the illuminated city, Marcus spoke softly. "You've changed this world, Leora, not through force, but through courage, intelligence, and respect. You've inspired others to see beyond rules and tradition, to value what truly matters. I've only begun to understand the impact we can have. There is still much to do, much to explore, but at least now we have the chance to shape the future together." She had faced rejection, defied rigid traditions, and embraced a partnership that transcended expectation. Her work had been recognized, her courage admired, and her ideas celebrated. More importantly, she had inspired change, showing that innovation, respect, and determination could reshape the world. In the quiet of that night, Leora realized that she had found something far greater than recognition or success. She had found a life defined not by tradition or judgment, but by courage, intelligence, and the choice to act boldly. She had found a partner who valued her mind and spirit, and together they had begun to change not only their own lives, but the society around them. The city of Zithera thrummed with energy, illuminated by the systems she and Marcus had perfected. Young engineers experimented, citizens debated possibilities, and the once rigid traditions of courtship and recognition began to shift, opening doors for a new generation. Leora and Marcus stood together, watching the world they had influenced. She felt a quiet pride and a deep sense of purpose. Humanity had shown its strength not through domination, but through intelligence, courage, and the willingness to challenge norms thoughtfully and respectfully. And in that strength, Zithera had begun to see the value of innovation, partnership, and respect. As dawn approached, the first light of the twin suns touched the city once more. Leora took a deep breath, feeling hope, determination, and excitement for what lay ahead. The journey was far from over, but she knew they had taken the first bold steps toward a brighter, more open, and inspired future. With Marcus by her side, she felt ready to face any challenge, explore every possibility, and continue building a world where courage, intelligence, and respect defined true strength. And in that knowledge, Leora finally felt completely, wonderfully free.